Hey guys, I got the news this morning that the Terrible Lizards charity anthology will be releasing on February 18th. Here's the cover right there. So pre-orders are live, and that will be benefiting the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds over in the UK. So it's for a good cause, and I was very happy to have a story chosen for it. I thought it'd be a good time to give you a little taste of that story so you can see if it's one that you would be interested in and supporting the RSPB. Shut up, you little brat. Brat! Don't call me a brat, you big dumb booger eater. A thundering voice came ringing out from the front seat. Enough! Harley and Piper had been arguing throughout the entire day of driving, and their father Scott was done listening to it. Driving through the desert was tiring enough without the constant screeching and screaming from the back seat. He was also starting to wonder about the shortcut that he had suggested that they take, but he didn't want to let Heather and the girls know that, or he would never hear the end of it. Scott's outburst did the trick for a moment or two. Before long, though, Piper reached over and pulled Harley's hair. This led the two of them getting into a slapping match. Scott turned around and put a hand to separate the two while yelling, "Stop it! I can turn the car around right now. We don't have to go to Disneyland." Heather, who was Scott's wife and the mother of Piper and stepmother to Harley, grabbed him by the shoulder. "Honey, the road, the road!" Scott looked back ahead and his mouth dropped open. There was a swirling blue mass in the road in front of them. Before Scott could react, the Subaru was pulling into the hole and the car was filled with squeals, screams, and a big deep yell as everyone grabbed a hold of whatever they could. As the car was spit out of the other side, Heather checked on the girls while Scott checked their surroundings in a panic. The road was gone. There were no signs or anything other than the terrain as far as the eye could see. That is, besides the little speck out in front of the car that was slowly becoming larger. The dot grew larger and larger until Scott realized that it looked like an enormous lizard that was taking slow and measured steps. The ground began to shake the closer that it came, and Scott recognized that it wasn't just any lizard. It was an enormous Tyrannosaurus Rex, and it was coming straight for them. The beast let out a thunderous roar and began to pick up speed. The girls and Heather were in hysterics. Piper held her favorite doll close to her chest. It was an Elsa doll that she hoped to show to the Ice Queen herself when they made their way to Disney. She feared now that she may never get that chance. Scott was doing the best he could to fight through the adrenaline and sweaty palms to keep himself steady. As Scott threw the car into reverse, he turned it around and hit the gas. Looking in the mirror, he could see that the beast was giving chase. They passed up a rock formation and a jeep pulled out from around the other side of it. It was two men who appeared to be in about their 40s and were dressed like archaeologists or people on a safari. The Jeep had no doors on it, and the driver was leaning towards the family car and trying to shout out a message. Scott rolled the passenger side window down to see what he had to say while still maintaining his speed and direction. The driver had brown hair that was blowing in the wind and wore glasses. He shouted, "Follow us, quickly! There's no time to waste." Scott had no idea what was going on and was glad to oblige. Whether or not they could be trusted, he wasn't sure, but they seemed to have some idea of what was going on, and that was more than enough for him. The T-Rex was gaining speed, and reversing away from it wasn't going to cut it for much longer. The mysterious men waved Scott toward them as they made a sharp turn off to the side. This was just enough time to slam on the brakes and take off going forwards before the prehistoric beast came down right on top of them. The girls screamed on top of their lungs in the back seat as an enormous eye took up the entire back window before Scott pulled away in a frenzy. There was what looked like a man-made cave going down into the ground, and the Jeep disappeared into the front of it. Scott was close behind and was just about to the front of the cave when the car stopped moving. Heather screamed, "What are you doing? Keep going, we're almost there." Scott turned around with a terrified expression. "Honey, I'm flooring it." The T-Rex had the trunk of the car in its massive mouth. It shook them about a bit as Scott kept a tight grip on the wheel and continued to press the pedal to the floor. As the beast lifted them off the ground, Scott had an idea. He slammed his hand on the horn and laid on it until the dinosaur dropped them and shook his head around in frustration and anger. As the mangled car hit the ground, Scott was thrilled to find that nothing was wrong with the back wheels. They took off down the cave and beat the T-Rex, who lunged after them once it came back to its senses. When they pulled it past the mouth of the cave, a stainless steel door came down and slammed to the floor behind them. They could hear the T-Rex slamming into it and trying to get in. He would realize there was no use and wander away soon. Alright, so that's from my story, Lost in Time. If you enjoyed that and you want to hear more stories from a bunch of other great authors that jumped in on this charity anthology, check it out. And y'all can pre-order it now. I'll put a link to that in the description. So, thank you. Y'all have a good day.